Hi, welcome to week 2 of AHB 375 Community Planning and Sustainable Practices. Congratulations to everyone. We made it through week 1. I love seeing everyone's video introductions. It's great to be able to hear about what your interests are and what you guys think already, some challenges or ideas you like for this class. So this week what we're doing is reading section 2 of our book. This section brings you some snippets of articles written by some very famous planners in our field. And I'm really curious to hear in your discussions what you guys liked about them. You know, how does these relate to what you've already learned in your previous applied human behavior classes? Was there anything in these articles that you had questions about, or was there anything that you kind of questioned what the author was saying? Maybe you disagreed with some of their ideas. I think that this first section gives you a good overview of what community planning is and some of the practices and tools that are used through community planning. So today I thought I would just give a brief overview of some concepts behind planning. When I was looking through your video introductions, a lot of people didn't know what community planning was, or was concerned that they might be behind on the course because they don't know anything about the field. But don't worry, we're all on the same page. So very first thing I found was this great introduction to urban planning by the City of Phoenix that I thought gave a really great overview for everyone.
Urban planning is a field of study that works to improve the quality of life of people in their communities by creating more convenient, equitable, efficient, healthy, and attractive places for present and future generations. In simpler terms, urban planning helps guide how cities and towns take shape. Where should the tallest buildings or most intense uses go? Where should transit lines go? Where is the best place to locate a new park? All these types of questions can be answered through urban planning. Dating as far back as ancient Egypt, urban planning has always been about designing a setting where civilization could thrive. How we've defined success with city building has changed over the centuries, but a few core elements have stayed the same. These core elements are economy, environment, health, and a sense of place, each of which provides important reasons for why we plan. We plan because how a city or town takes shape has a big impact on how its economy can take root and prosper. From planning roadway networks and rail systems to transport goods, to designing transit networks to get people to and from work and school efficiently, urban planning has always had a strong relationship with economic development. We plan to help protect our environment. Whether it's designating lands to reserve for wildlife habitat or establishing standards for greener buildings, urban planning can play a role in creating a more sustainable future. Designing a city that protects public health is one of the longest-standing roles that planning has played. Plans across the country have helped ensure that residential uses are safe distances from places that may pose health risks. Recent efforts in planning have focused more on designing cities to promote healthy lifestyles through pedestrian connectivity and access to healthy foods. We plan to help enforce our community's identity. Creating a sense of place is one of the greatest outcomes of planning efforts. Planning can help cities take shape in a way that celebrates their natural surroundings or embodies the unique history and culture of their community. Cities are not accidental spaces, but human creations. Urban planning provides the vehicle for collaboration and design into this process. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to learn more about planning in Phoenix, please visit our website at phoenix.gov/pdd. This video is brought to you through a partnership with the Arizona Community Foundation.
I hope you liked that video. I thought it was a really great introduction to what planning is. So it showed you all the different elements, whereas an architect might look at just a building or just a layout. Planning is really comprehensive. You're looking at many different facets. You're looking at health, safety, transportation, land use, community, and quality of life. So really planning is about creating a community for today and into the future. We're looking at for a short term as well as the long term. So really planning serves, we see it as being kind of three main purposes. Underneath these purposes, there's a variety of subcategories we can look at. But really it's enhance and preserve our built and natural environment, shape and improve our communities, and plan and accommodate growth for now and into the future. Planners, we answer many questions. We're really looking at who, why, when, where, how. We're looking at how does our built environment influence behavior. For instance, if I'm designing a roadway network and I want to put my pedestrians and my cyclists on these low stress roads where, vehicles aren't driving fast, I would maybe improve and enhance the sidewalks in that areas to encourage people to use those. But maybe that's not really is happening. So you have to look at how human behavior is, what the land uses are, and vice versa, and really see what is the best mix and how do we create this quality of life. We need to know, what do our residents want and need? A huge part of planning is community outreach and stakeholder outreach. Every plan, every item we have is built on what our public says. So we don't go haphazardly and build a mall. There's a lot of internal and external meetings that happen where it's sitting down and talking to the residents and businesses and community members and finding out, is this something we want? Maybe we don't want it here. Maybe we would rather have that over here. Or maybe we just don't want it at all. That's all part of the planning process. We also look at how are we going to grow in the short and long term. That is the biggest part of planning, that we look and say, hey, in the next 5 years, I know immediately we have these needs. Maybe there's a lot of safety improvements. Maybe there is a development coming in that might impact quality of air conditions. Maybe it's an industrial site. So we need to look at our immediate, but we also say, what do we need in the future? We're sitting here and we're trying to help decision makers say, this is what we project and think that's going to happen. This is how we accommodate that growth. And then we just do a basic, what do people need to improve their life? Where are these improvements needed? I do a lot of pedestrian, bicycle, and transit studies. I've been lucky enough to see firsthand how this improves someone's life. Last year, I worked with the city of Payson to come up with a transit system. I sat there on the day the transit system opened, and a man came up to me and said, thank you. I can now leave my house. I can now, be mobile again. I can go to the grocery store, and I haven't been able to go for a week. So that's something empowering that you don't realize as a planner. Sometimes you sit in your offices or you're at meetings and you think, I'm doing all of this, but then it really breaks it down and it's about people. That is what planning is all about. And how do we improve communities and people's life? So there's a variety of planners. I want to just go through a couple different types of planners so you guys can have an understanding of there's not just one of us, there's a lot of us. We wear many different hats. The first would be a community planner. So that is really kind of what you were looking at from that City of Phoenix video that I had. Community planners typically work in the consulting world or with a city, county, or the state. And what they do is they work with residents and the decision makers to design the community's future. So they're, in this example in this photo, this group is really marking on a map where they want to have perhaps retail, where do they want to have housing units, where do they want to have green belts or parks. And then it's the community planner takes all this information that the public is saying and it goes back to the city or the decision makers and say, this is what people want. This is what we're looking to build the vision of this community. So then they start to develop that plan. So let's say hypothetically, a group says in this one area, I want to have a park. And then a developer comes in a year and a half, 2 years down the road, and they say, hey, we want to put in a shopping mall right there. The city planners, community planners can go back and look at what this plan is, what the community said they would like to have and say, hey, I'm sorry, that's not what's in this vision for this area. Perhaps we can look over here. So many communities, they'll have either, it depends on the size of the city, but they'll have just a general where it's the entire region that you're looking at, the entire city, or some cities that are really large, like for instance, Phoenix has villages. So each village creates its own vision for what it wants to see in the future. So it's up to the community planners to make sure that this small vision relates to that regional citywide vision as well, and vice versa. Transportation planners. So this is what I do. I am a transportation planner. We work with residents and cities to help improve our transportation system. So that's meaning pedestrian facilities, bike facilities, transit, your vehicle, the safety of your corridor. So either we're looking at where high crashes are at, or we're making sure that pedestrians, bicyclists can easily access a road, safely access the road. So let's say there's a bus stop right here, like in this image. There's no way for these people to cross the road. So how do we get them from one side to the other? Just like the chicken, right? We're also looking at this is integrating land use as well. So we're looking at, let's say a shopping mall or something big comes, is going to be developed. How do we get people to go there safely and effectively? And how do we get them to come home the same? Is it the same route? Do we have alternative routes? What's the best manner? A big push in our industry right now, as you've all probably seen on TV, is emerging technology. So looking at autonomous vehicles and connected vehicles, and how does that change the way that we are traveling? There's a lot of people now too, and community members that are choosing not to drive. Previously, when someone was 16 years old, they were, at the motor vehicle department the second it opened to get their driver's license. A lot of people are choosing now not to get their driver's license. Or people, as you age, you might not be as comfortable driving. So we need to make sure that we're accommodating these users as well. So we're looking into how do we create transportation options in multiple ways. So it's not just a vehicle, but it's maybe through an Uber or Lyft, a connected and autonomous vehicle. But what does that mean to our built environment too? Because of Uber, Lyft, connected and autonomous vehicles, we need to maybe make some improvements to how our traffic lights are working. Maybe we need wider sidewalks or staging areas that Uber can pull up to. So if you have a small sidewalk and you have a lot of people waiting for the autonomous vehicle, then you create a congestion on a sidewalk, which isn't good. And then let's say someone comes by in a wheelchair, they can't get through. So these are a lot of ideas that we are trying to work through. And as planners, we really research best practices, and then we create these plans and we go to the community and say, what do you see are your most critical issues and needs, especially now in the long term, and how do we accommodate that? We're also public health planners. When people were speaking on their intro videos, a lot of people were really interested in public health issues, whether that's being mental health or your active living or food and nutrition or just your environmental health. And that's what public health planners do. I work a lot with public health planners as transportation because they really are, they work hand in hand. And so really public health planners they work with communities mostly or consultants, and they help to integrate health in the planning process. And this is really a newer field I shouldn't say newer, but it's becoming more popular. And so I'll give some examples from my experience working with public health planners. So really, they are the voice of the people, and they are the voice of the people that you don't hear from a lot. So we're thinking, we're trying to create a more active lifestyle. So a public health planner might be a representative that goes to the community and says, we need more sidewalks or trails to get people active. Maybe it's something where it's aging in place, the Human and Health Services. Right now I'm working with Lake Havasu to create a new transit system. So there's a large push there of that there's a large senior community and they aren't mobile, just like that example I said in Payson, where it's let's create ways of getting people to where they need to go so they can age in place. And perhaps part of that too is having access to food, so food and nutrition. So I've worked locally in Glendale, Arizona with a public health planner to go out to community members in low areas that have a lot of socioeconomic disparity. So we're talking high poverty rates, maybe minorities, and then also places that have high rates of obesity and physical health issues, to hear from them, what transportation issues do you have and how can we mitigate that? So we heard a lot about, I can't get to the bus. And that's my only way of getting to the grocery store and getting to work. And so how do we improve that? Maybe we put sidewalks in, or perhaps we get grid bikes or e-share bikes that are low cost. How do we get them to these facilities? Also, public health planners can then work with their community planners and land use planners to say, there's these food deserts, so then areas that don't have access to healthy food, or even hospital deserts where there's no access to quality medical care. So they can work with their community planners and say, this area is in desperate need of either a healthy food source or a medical facility because of XYZ. There may be socioeconomic conditions, there are health disparities. Public health planners are, like I said, increasingly becoming popular. For a long time, communities, this was part of the process, but now it's becoming more integral and bigger part of everything that we do. On every project that I have a public health component to it. Another really great planning idea field is parks and recreation. So every park that you see, it wasn't haphazardly put there. There is a rhyme and reason behind it. So parks and rec planners, they plan, design parks, open spaces, and trails. So they work with their community planners, their transportation planners, and their public health planners to come up with a system of, one, what are the parks going to look like? What amenities are needed in that community? Some communities are maybe, more children live in that area, so maybe there's a playground, whereas perhaps it's in a senior community, so maybe you wouldn't have a playground in that area, but perhaps you would have more, wider trail facilities that accommodate wheelchairs. So that's all part of the Parks and Recreation planners' job. And then environmental planners. Environmental planners is another field that I work with a lot. So they are really the ones speaking up for our natural environment. They're making sure that what we do isn't causing air quality concerns. We aren't getting rid of an endangered species habitat. We are accommodating the quality of life of residents as well as a part of environmental planning, and just looking at long-term sustainability. There's a variety of environmental planners. People can focus on biology, land use, air quality, a lot of different factors. They also are the ones that saying, hey, this area, Phoenix, for example, is under air quality watch because we have a lot of dust in our air. We don't have the clean, crisp air like they do up in, say, Montana. So they work with community planners to say, hey, how can we mitigate this? There is this maybe a dirt road here that if we just paved it or we put the sealant on top of it, it wouldn't cause as much dust in the air. And that's important from a public health standpoint as well, because that's a large reason for a lot of asthma and health concerns. So as you can see, all of these planners, we all work together to help create these community plans. So last week you were asked to look at your asset mapping. So just real quick, a lot of people had some questions on it. I just wanted to go over really quick what the importance of an asset mapping is. So what this is it's you work through every kind of existing resource that a community has. So it helps you identify really what your issues and needs are. So what you're looking at is what parks are here, what hospitals are here, what colleges, what different variety of items do we have in this community. So your strengths and weaknesses in those. We also learn about what are the resources of this. For instance, in Lake Havasu, I'm working on this transit study, and we got together all of the different human health services, so senior centers or disability service providers, and we learned that there are a lot of people in the community providing transportation services. A lot of members didn't know that this transportation service was available. I wouldn't have known that if I didn't go out and do this assessment of what is currently there and talking to people. So really, asset mapping is giving you your baseline condition of what is here, what are our overlaps, where are resources that we didn't know existed, that maybe our community members didn't know that existed. And then it helps us to identify our needs as well. So for instance, like say Lake Havasu didn't have any of these transportation service, or they have transportation services, but it's only catered to a certain individual characteristic. Well, we know now that we need to add on top of that, we have a more public concern and public need for transportation that isn't provided by these transportation providers. So the asset mapping is a very critical and vital component of building a strong community. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go, but I had one more video that is from Denver. They just recently completed 4 different plans. I believe it's 4 different plans. And I just thought it was a really great video that kind of shows planning as a whole and what it means.
Denver is a dynamic and vibrant city, growing and changing every day. How can we ensure the Denver of tomorrow is even better than the city we love today? For 2 years, we asked you, the people who live, work, and play here, what's your vision for Denver? You said you want a Denver that's more inclusive, better connected, healthy, and resilient for all of us who live here today, as well as our neighbors of tomorrow. The results of your input are 5 plans that will shape the future of our city. Blueprint Denver is a plan for land use and transportation designed to help us become a more inclusive city. It's about complete neighborhoods and better ways to get around. It also lays out a common sense approach to development, where it should go and how it should fit into the surrounding community. Game Plan for a Healthy City proclaims that easy access to parks and open space is a basic right for all of us. It will ensure our parks, recreation programs, and green infrastructure serve the needs of all Denverites today and tomorrow. Denver Moves Transit is Denver's first ever plan for making transit more frequent, more reliable, and more convenient for riding every day. Denver Moves Pedestrians and Trails will guide us in building and improving sidewalks, street crossings, and trails, the most essential elements for getting around town and enjoying all our city has to offer. One plan brings it all together. Comprehensive Plan 2040 is the long-term vision for Denver and its people. Like the other 4 plans, it reflects the voices of thousands of you who have shared your ideas, concerns, and dreams for the future.
Check out the plans and tell us what you think at denvergov.org/denverright.